My name is Don Terry Veal. I am the Vice President for State and Federal Relations and the Chief of Staff for President Wilson here at Morgan State University. Dr. Wilson regrets not being here today. Of course, the President, as you know, has so many things happening, but today he has an issue that he has to respond to and out of state, and that's the reason he's not here today. Otherwise, he would be here with bells. He's always excited to have elements of dealing with the city here on our campus, but particularly in this case with Mayor Scott. He would love to have an occasion with him today. On behalf of Dr. Wilson, welcome Mayor Scott to Morgan State University again. This is not a stranger to you. You are very, very one with us here at Morgan, and we're glad you're here with us this morning to talk about your open checkbook. We applaud the mayor for his transparency by letting the citizens see how the city's monies are being spent. Of course, this kind of thinking is in line with what we have here at Morgan State University. Dr. Wilson has a very open and transparent process here, and so we understand the importance of this, and we're glad that we happen to be in a city that also embraced this concept and taken a lead the way the mayor is taking a lead with this today. Thank you, Mayor, for coming to Morgan. We applaud your noble cause. And of course, we'll support what you're doing for the city of Baltimore. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Veal, and I want to thank the entire Morgan State family and President Wilson for having us here, and especially for having us here at the Morgan State University School of Business and thank you for hosting us for this important announcement this morning. As you know, we are gathered today to launch Baltimore City's Open Checkbook. I am pleased to be joined by our City Comptroller, Comptroller Bill Henry. I think it's fitting, Mr. Comptroller, that the first time you and I are doing a press conference together that is actually not at City Hall, but in Northeast Baltimore, an area of the city that you and I both represented for quite some time on the City Council. We're also joined by our City Administrator, Chris Shorter, and our brand new Chief Data Officer, Justin Elsas. And today we are releasing this after designing and releasing this interactive dashboard to allow the people of Baltimore to explore city spending. And this, as you know, was a top priority of mine. This is something that I committed to and tasked my team with developing as a part of my first 100-day strategy. And as I said in my State of the City address, building trust demands that we devote ourselves to being responsible stewards of city resources and the citizens' hard-earned tax dollars. And with this tool, residents can experience Baltimore City's budget in action, exploring spending by city agencies and comparing dollars received by external vendors. It's with the development of tools like Open Checkbook that we will begin to truly build a culture of transparency, accountability, and data-driven governance inside of Baltimore City government. My administration will continue to find ways to innovate and take this work to new heights. This is just the beginning. I'd like to thank everyone who's a part of this process, City Administrator Shorter for shepherding the process, Chief Data Officer Elsas for developing this user-friendly tool, because we know how important that is for us not to just have it, but for folks to be able to understand and use it no matter their level of skill on the internet, and to our Comptroller Bill Henry for being a committed partner in this work to change the culture of city government for the better and make it more transparent. And it's with that that I'd like to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Comptroller Bill Henry.
Good morning. The mayor spoke to how it was appropriate that we were up here in Northeast Baltimore, a part of the city that we had both represented on the council. But I also want to take a moment to say I think it's really appropriate to be having this conversation in the auditorium of a school. one of the big jobs of the Comptroller's office, and really one of the responsibilities of all of our elected officials, is to educate the public, to make sure that there's an understanding of how we are doing what we are doing in your name and for your good. And so that's why I'm excited to be here today with Mayor Brandon Scott, Chief Administrative Officer Christopher Shorter, and Chief Data Officer Justin J.T. Elsas, to launch a long-awaited transparency initiative. It's our duty as public servants to be good stewards of our taxpayers' money, to make sure that those funds are spent thoughtfully and for the common good. After all, the people of Baltimore City are our bosses. You deserve to be able to review and give input on how we spend your money, so we can make sure we're spending it well. My office has been collaborating with Baltimore City IT, the Budget Office, and the Mayor's Office since December, assessing the feasibility of this dashboard. Open Checkbook reflects a workaround. We're still trying to make some better connections to the city's general ledger, but I anticipate more data coming online as the city figures out how to address these obstructions. Today, we're launching a process. This is a process to be more transparent about city finances that is long awaited and sorely needed. This checkbook is the first step, and I look forward to working with the Mayor's office to include more detail on approved expenditures, as well as connecting this to our prompt payment dashboard. Finally, I'd like to take a moment and thank Los Angeles City Controller Ron Galperin and Philadelphia City Controller Rebecca Reinhardt. While their titles may be spelled differently, they and their staff were very generous with their time, providing us with good counsel on how to set up, maintain, and improve this kind of dashboard, allowing us to share that feedback with the Mayor's office. Bringing best practices from elsewhere is just one of the many ways I look forward to continuing to work with Mayor Scott and his administration. Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to the Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller, and thank you for your partnership. And now I'll turn it over to our City Administrator, Chris Shorter.
All right, thank you, Mayor. See if this is, I've been given instructions to correct this. I want to do that before I start. All right, perfect. All right, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Comptroller. It is quite an honor to be here this morning. I certainly enjoy the idea of, like you said, of being able to launch this at a university and in a setting that is a learning environment. I am also excited to say that I share in the Mayor's excitement and in the Comptroller's enthusiasm about the launch of the Open Checkbook platform. The launch of this tool is just the latest example of this government's commitment to the highest standards of transparency and accountability. The Open Checkbook is a tool, as you know, that will transform how Baltimore residents understand the use of public funds, help interested parties explore information about vendors, expenditures, procurement categories as they are reflected in the city's ledger. By providing more insight into financial information, we hope to better empower citizens that the knowledge necessary to engage us is in a highly informed manner and in holding our government partners accountable. Initiatives such as this help reinforce one of the guiding principles of this government, which is that public servants are obligated to put taxpayer dollars to the highest and best use possible while we execute our missions. The City of Baltimore now joins a cadre of world-class cities and municipalities who deploy open data and who enhance information brought to the public. We are proud of this tool. We look forward to continuing to improve information available to our residents and to the public through this application and other sources. I want to introduce our newly appointed Chief Data Officer, Justin Elsas. Come on up, Justin.
Good morning, everyone. I thought what I'd do is kind of showcase the tool, our new Open Checkbook dashboard, kind of walk you through how it works and what you're able to learn. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Scott, City Administrator Shorter, and Comptroller Henry for their commitment to these kinds of data products. I can say on behalf of the data community, both within government and outside, I think everyone's really empowered and excited to see leadership, so bought into the use of data to make good decisions and for transparency. I also need to thank the finance department. Several there, obviously the Director Henry Raymond, Deborah Brandis, Misha McCurdy, Mira Green from finance, and Rob McBride and Samantha Luckhart from our BCIT. It was a tremendous effort. As I'll describe in a moment, we're currently working towards implementation of Workday, which is going to just give us better, richer, cleaner data on exactly this kind of information. So we're looking forward to that, and they've really been bogged down with that. So for them to make time to help us through building this was really appreciated. So first of all, if folks would like to follow along on their phones, you can visit mayor.baltimorecity.gov/opencheckbook. I'll add this caveat at this moment, it isn't quite mobile friendly. We're going to make it mobile friendly. One thing I want to mention at the outset here is one of our missions in terms of building these types of data products is to launch things quickly and get user feedback. We don't want to wait forever to try and come up with the perfect polished tool. We'd like to get something out there that has kind of the features that we know folks are looking for and build it up from there. So we are seeking feedback. There's a link on the dashboard itself for a feedback form to give us feedback and so we can make the tool better. So what I'll show here is, so after you visit the website, if you'd like, what can help is down in this lower right-hand corner, you'll see a button to make it full screen. So I'm going to do that. So the first thing you notice is kind of a high-level overview of city spending. What we have for the dashboard currently is fiscal year 2020 data. And the types of spending you're going to see are primarily transactions with vendors or contractors. So, nearly half of the city's budget is in salaries and benefits. There are a number of transactions that occur with banks, paying down debt, that sort of thing, which is not captured in the tool. So what you see here is this total of $570 million. That's the total that's captured in Open Checkbook currently. In any location you see one of these eyes, you can hover for more information. Like I said, this represents a portion of city spending. This is the date of the first transaction in the dashboard itself, with a message that this is the start of that fiscal year. A couple of other points on navigation. Down here in the lower left, we have links to a few other pieces of data that we think residents will find useful. First of all, the data themselves. So in addition to launching the dashboard, we've also published the raw data behind the dashboard on Open Baltimore. So if you visit Open Baltimore and search for Open Checkbook, you'll find that raw data set. So for the data community out there, feel free to download or connect to that data and start playing with it. We also have links there to employee salary data. Like I said, that's a large part of the city budget, as well as budget publications from BBMR, the budget office, so that you can kind of understand the context of this city spending in terms of the rest of city expenditures. Again, at a very high level, over here on the right, you have kind of a breakdown by agency and how much, which proportion of our funding sources are covered in the dashboard. Down below, you'll see navigation, a couple of arrows here. You can either click on the numbers to find the names of the different pages or click through with an arrow. There are also kind of larger links here. What I'm going to do now is flip over to the next page where we'll kind of walk through an example to kind of show residents how to use the tool. So this is the general layout that you'll find on the Spending Explorer page. Here we have a couple of buttons that are going to walk through kind of filtering and showing you how to kind of use the dashboard. So we'll click this first button. First, we'll look at office supply spending by using the spending category filter at the left. You'll notice on this, there's a left-hand kind of gray pane here, which gives you a few controls for filtering and slicing data and searching for vendors. So that selects office supplies. All of these visuals updated, so now you see that the only spending category shown is office supplies. You also have a breakdown by agency, so you can see agency spending on office supplies, as well as our kind of our top vendors for office supplies. It looks like police have kind of spent the most on office supplies, so we can dig in further by clicking on police. You can either select it in the filter, or you can click on the bar in the actual graphic. All of the graphics are kind of interactive. And then finally, what we could do is drill down to a particular vendor. So again, you can do that by searching for the vendor name or clicking on the visual itself for the vendor of interest. So we'll click on Granger. And that shows you kind of some of the major the transactions. And again, this is for fiscal year 2020. For office supplies, it looks like asset management was kind of one of the primary divisions spending money on office supplies in the police department. So with that, we can move over to the general spending explorer. That kind of walks you through how to use it. Without those large buttons here, now you'll see kind of the total spending shown. As you filter, that number will update, as well as the kind of over time spending from July of last year through June of this year. That's all I have. I just wanted to show kind of briefly how to use the tool. Really excited for feedback. As I said, there's a link on the main page where you can find a feedback form. We'll be adding new features, new pieces of data, updating the data, but we're really looking for residents to help us design and move this forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you for your hard work on this tool, which will give Baltimoreans a window into the city's spending and finances like never before. Again, you can explore Open Checkbook by visiting mayor.baltimorecity.gov/open checkbook. That's mayor.baltimorecity.gov/open checkbook. And at this time, we'll take a few questions.
Is there a way for residents to give input, I think, Comptroller, through, say, not on the tool itself, but on the city's spending? Is there a way that they can give input, or is there an agency they should go through?
Well, two things. One, that's why we have Taxpayers Night, and we'll be having one of those next week. We always know that the residents have the opportunity to do that. And as we move forward into the first full budget for my administration next year, you can expect to see the budget office and others really engaging more with the community about the budget. We'll be doing a more community-driven process where we're speaking with people much way ahead of time.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Emily?
You mentioned there was more data that you wanted to add. Are you looking to update it with fiscal year 21 anytime soon, or will we get into that?
Yeah, we're going to be updating it consistently. I'll let Justin talk about that process. I know you heard from not just me, but the comptroller and the city administrator that we have. And, I think we both ran on something that we talked about, trying to update how the city operates, Emily, and understanding that I actually asked the city administrator the other day if he had to put a year on where he thought city government was versus the rest. And he said 1998, I said 94. But we know that there are processes that we have to put in place to even allow these kind of things to happen because the city has not updated the way it operates in some time. And we'll be going through that process. And as we said, updating it consistently so that people can see more. Justin?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Yes, we plan to update quarterly. At this moment in time, as we transition onto Workday, which will eventually kind of capture a whole host of other city processes like procurement. In the interim, the reason I mentioned and kind of shouted out so many people from our finance department is it really was a Herculean effort to kind of manually extract this data and get it into a clean format where we can actually have some useful information for residents and where we can really extract insights. Going forward, after Workday implementation later this year, we expect to connect the dashboard kind of directly to Workday. And at that point, we may revisit the intervals between updates. But to be sure, quarterly updates, yes, at the next kind of quarterly update, we'll start seeing fiscal year 2021 data.
And just to simplify what Justin says is that they had to do it by hand because the city was so far behind in 2021.
We used a lot of pencils.
They'll probably be reflected on here soon. Anybody else? Students? No? All right. Yes, sir. That's a Justin question. When is it going to be ready for mobile, Justin?
Great question. I can't commit to a date yet. It's just a matter of getting the bandwidth on it. I would say at the very least by that first kind of quarterly update, but I would maybe say 4 to 6 weeks should tops in my view. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.